Folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the theft of Western jobs, and with it, of course, Western standard of living. So the globalists have arranged two things to happen simultaneously. One is the export of Western jobs to places like India and China and so on. And this is created, like in the United States, what's known as the Rust Belt, the hitherto manufacturing centres and cities in the United States, and also the mass immigration of illiterate third world peasants to the West, which has had the effect of subdividing the amount of jobs that are in the West, and with it the standards of living. So the Western economies are the only places capable of producing jobs. If you look at the best paid jobs in the world and the number of jobs in the world, amongst the Western or hitherto the Western populations, the majority of jobs were clustered very much in the West, and the jobs that paid enough money to create any sort of financial surplus, where you could send your kids to college or buy a house or go on vacations and that sort of thing. Those jobs were not exclusively, but they were definitely clustered in the West, and the West was the only place that produced working class, a well-off working class and a well-off middle class. The elites were doing okay, but so were the middle class and a decent proportion of the working class. And just going back to, say, 1970, in the West, I'll use sort of Australia as one example. In 1970, anybody who had a job in a factory, full-time job in a factory, could afford to buy a modest house. It wasn't a mansion or anything, but a modest house, and could afford to have a dependent wife and 2.4 children, and a basic motor vehicle, mass-produced motor vehicle, and they could have a driving vacation, maybe 2 driving vacations per annum each year, and they could do all right. And so this was very much part of the Western situation. Well-paying jobs with a manageable cost of living, and pretty much everyone, there was more or less full employment. Now, this is post-World War II, of course, and going into the 70s. Now, this sort of dynamic has changed because, firstly, jobs are being sent, vast numbers of jobs are being sent offshore, whether it's computer programmers or call center people in India, or manufacturing jobs being sent to China. It really doesn't matter, but those jobs have gone, and there's been a productivity deficit because the Indians and the Chinese are far less productive than the Western worker was, given the levels of automation and training and skills and so on. So there's a huge productivity deficit within that equation as well. But with the mass migration, not only are jobs being lost, but whatever wealth has remained in the West is now being subdivided. Now, in any sort of mass reorganization or realignment of an economy, the easiest jobs to create, of course, are the peasant type jobs, subsistence jobs, and this is where the West has been, due to the importation of all these illiterate third world peasants and so on, that the majority of jobs, the vast majority of jobs being created, new jobs. Because this is a big catch cry. Look at all the new jobs being created. The majority of these jobs, again, the vast majority of them, are subsistence jobs. They're not enough money. Even if you're sharing your 2-bedroom apartment with 3 other people, you're still only just getting by. And this encroachment on one side, increasing cost of living, but also wages flattening out because of the mass migration, or mass migration being a big part of that. Wages aren't even remotely coming close to catching up. So jobs that hitherto would have, not that long ago, 25 years ago, would have paid enough money for someone to live independently and to have a surplus and to own a motor vehicle, they now don't. And unless you're living communally or you're still living with your folks or something like that, most of these jobs people just can't afford to work at. They just don't pay enough. Or people are working, day jobs, night jobs, and weekend jobs to get by. Now, this is a huge change in the Western economies, and again, it's all been inflicted on us by the globalists. But this view of if we took all the jobs in the world and we distributed them equally throughout the world, then we would have a situation where there's either going to be huge unemployment, or there's going to be, it's just going to increase the number of people living hand to mouth as subsistence peasants in the middle of nowhere, living that sort of lifestyle. Or we've got a huge surplus population that's going to have nothing to do and will be surplus to all requirements. So let's just have a look at the pieces of that jigsaw. Now, if you look at the amount of jobs that even would be subsistence jobs, or subsistence with maybe a slight surplus, then we'd be looking at the surplus population of the world as it currently stands would be around between 3 and 3.5 billion with a B. So that's the surplus population if we were to redistribute all the jobs, because the jobs are heavily clustered in the West, in the white, well-managed, well-organised, well-administered, hitherto socially cohesive, high-trust societies. So wherever you get a lot of social cohesion and high trust, you get a lot of jobs being created because people can get on with the business of getting on with their business, going to work and starting up businesses and inventing new things and so on. So jobs are unusually or intensively clustered in areas where there is high trust and high social cohesion. But with the globalists moving all these third world peasants, witness the Palestinian drama at the moment. These people in no way, they're just freeloaders in the West. They're not here to be part of Western society. They're just fucking freeloaders, for goodness sakes. So they've come to the West, as have many others, by the way, not just Palestinians. I'm not singling them out. I mention it at the moment only because of the street riots and protests and so on that clearly indicate they're Palestinians first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. They're not Westerners, and they're not even if they're born in Britain or America. I'm Palestinian. So we've got a situation where jobs are unusually clustered in just in say 1/6 of the world's population. Has more than 50% of the jobs. So once you redistribute that clustering of jobs away from the West, or you mass move people into the West and then share those jobs around with the people you've just mass moved in, the third world peasants, then suddenly you get this division or subdivision and subdivision of labour, which creates fewer and fewer jobs, or creates a lot more jobs, of which very few provide anything resembling a living wage, if you will, which is the capacity to live with any sort of independence. Now, let's just consider which way things are going to go here, because this is a pretty critical sort of turning point. Now, the people who are quite well-to-do, the problems will catch up with them in the future generations, but as of today and as of this very minute, the wealthier people, people have got their $5, $6, $10 million houses or more, and they've got their holiday, their vacation house up in the mountains or down on the coast or something like that. They're not looking at. They're looking at, well, there's no problem here. But even they say, we know plenty of them, and they say mass migration, wonderful, wonderful. I need more people to mow my lawn and clean my house and do the shit jobs and do the handyman jobs around the place. I need more people around to do that. But I don't want those people living anywhere near me. I don't want those people anywhere near my daughter. I don't want those people anywhere near corrupting my kids or I don't want them in my street and this sort of thing. So at the same time which indicates they live in areas where they're never going to other than the guy who comes to clean the swimming pools, they're never going to see any of these people ever. Never going to have to interact with them at any level, and so they can afford to be. No, I don't mind if all these people come over, just as long as they don't come anywhere near me. So you're looking at a very small elite in the West. Less than 1 in 100 workers have a sufficient income to live that sort of lifestyle where they can be completely remote and divorced from the masses, the third world peasant masses that are being imported in by the globalist or the globalist stooges pretending to be our political representatives. So there's a very small elite that's completely divorced from it, but the mass of people are increasingly being pushed underwater by increased cost of living, not just energy. But I mean, just have a look at this. Here's a house that sold. This is in Sydney, sold in 1999 for $400,000 in 1999. Now that house today is 2.2 million. So that's only 24 years ago. And the fucking house has gone up by five times, 500% increase. Now, wages haven't gone up anywhere near that amount, not even a tenth of that amount of wages gone up. So this will give you an indication of just how the cost of living is increasing, whether you reflected in rent or mortgage payments and energy costs, food costs, of course, going up recently and quite brutally all across the Western world. So these squeezes are being put on people. So standard of living is falling. So it's more than the paycheck of 1970 had more than three times more purchasing power than the paycheck of today. I mean, just let that sink in. So all this dividing of jobs and employment, and all these people moving in, is creating subsistence jobs. So there's a huge increase in subsistence level jobs of dishwashers, burger flippers, floor sweepers, Walmart greeters, and there's been an explosion in those sort of jobs, and these low-paid minimum wage jobs that they're everywhere, and a lot of them are filled by these third world peasants. But the jobs are being especially created for them because these jobs didn't exist beforehand. They only came into existence once there was this super cheap labour, much of which is being laundered, if you like, through these fake labour hire scam companies, because they're all over the fucking place, Indian and Chinese and Philippine and so on. So we've got either we're going to have the whole, other than a tiny elite, is going to have subsistence wage level jobs. That's sort of option number one where we're going. Now, option number two is that the surplus population of the world is such that there's going to have to be some sort of manufactured COVID type epidemic that's going to kill off vast numbers of people or sterilize vast numbers of people, which will have the effect of reducing the population sharply over the next 50 years or so. Or people above, highly productive working age, over the age of 50 or something, are going to be, mysterious diseases are going to appear that'll wipe them out, or there's going to need to be sort of something, because the model of the efficient, socially cohesive, high trust Western world is disappearing. The globalists are doing everything they can to shatter that, everything they can, and they're aggressively and brutally moving to do it. And by the way, as far as it goes at the moment, largely succeeding. The fact that white people have managed to hold out this long and not succumb to the mad propaganda is probably a marvel in itself, which indicates the extent of the confidence and the social cohesion that the Western populations once uniformly and universally had, which of course is disappearing now. So where is it going to go or we go back to the situation where the West reasserts itself, and countries that can from their own abilities and their own creativities and organizational capacities can develop their own economies, Globalization can occur without mass movements of people. Countries can produce great products and offer good services at great value, and there's trading has occurred all over the world forever, and trading is globalization in my view. If you can sell your goods anywhere in the world or your services anywhere in the world, then that's globalization. You don't need to move masses of people or purposefully impoverish others. Now, there can be an argument to say, well, the white people are socially, they've got more social cohesion, they've got more trust, they've got better education, they've got this, they've got that, gives them an advantage, which is unfair, which is why other countries and areas can't compete. Well, that's kind of how it is. But these countries that can compete get the benefit of all this technology and organisation in terms of the products and services. So it's not as if everyone's losing. That's not how it works. So where is it all going to go? I mean, any one of those scenarios is probably that we're all turned into subsistence, serfs. Universal basic income would be a manifestation of that, and the entire Western world is just diluted into nothingness, and the jobs that were once well-paying and could provide a standard of living will all become subsistence jobs, with the exception of the 1 in 300, and which will include the stooges and the enforcers for the globalist elite, which would be sort of 1 in 1,000. So there's that. There's the mass. We all become sort of. There's just a mass peasant, international mass peasant economies. All the jobs are effectively distributed around, and they're not clustered in the West as before. And there are no high social trust, high social cohesion societies anywhere. Everyone's being controlled, or at that stage, everyone will be controlled by sort of propaganda and terror and so on. Or there's the idea of the mass, the mass reduction or the huge reduction in world population through some engineered COVID type event, or that the West reasserts itself. I'm not sure which will go. I think the mass peasant serf thing will be the probable direction of affairs. But I'd be interested to see your comments. Time's running out. We don't really have a whole lot of time left, I don't think. If the West is going to reassert itself, then it's essential and vital that Donald Trump becomes president. It's essential and vital that Donald Trump becomes president, and that process will begin with the day of his election. But let's see how we go. You've been fantastic today. Your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.